these are some tips on how my spiritual awakening changed my life. So the summer for my junior year of high school, I had a massive spiritual awakening, and it's where I realized that we were all one, and I actually felt unity consciousness with everything. Like, I just felt like I was everything in the 3D reality, and that completely changed my worldview, because before that I was spiritual but not like actually spiritual, and now I completely believe in all this stuff, and it really changed my life. So one thing that I learned is that I really should stop pleasing others. The reason why is because from the above perspective, we're all the same. So if we please others, we're basically giving up ourselves in order to please another person, which doesn't make sense considering that we're all one anyway. And another thing is that it really opened up my worldview to possibilities, because since we're all one, that means that everything and everyone is already complete, whole, equal, worthy. So you don't really have to do anything to be those. You are inherently those qualities. And that changed my life because I stopped doing things for others and rather started doing things for myself. Like for instance, I was going to a high school that really wasn't for me, and instead of just continuing along that path knowing that's not exactly what I want to do, I just stopped and I studied abroad. So because you're already worthy, equal, whole, enough, one inherently, you don't need to look outside of yourself for those things because they're already within you. And if you actually integrate this into your life, you can change your life, because I think a lot of things that people do is to try to fulfill that void within themselves where they feel like they're not enough and not equal. And I was like that too, and I think a lot of people are like that too, and it's completely normal just because of the way society is right now. And for example, in my family, my dad would never really approve of things that I did. He would never say wow, that's amazing, you're just enough, you're worthy. He would say, okay, that's good, keep it up for next time too. So it's anything that you did was never really enough, and that's how it made me feel. And so I grew up thinking that I wasn't enough subconsciously, and so I would do things in the external world to prove themselves. And of course this isn't my dad's fault, it's just because of the way that his dad was raised too, and the way that his grandfather was raised. It goes back from the whole generations, and that's okay. And all we have to do is reprocess it in our mind, and we can be the cycle breakers. And I feel like a lot of people in this generation are waking up to that. Also, literally no one cares about what you're doing. And I kind of realized this after my spiritual awakening, because before that I was constantly looking to others for approval and validation just to make it seem like I was worthy or enough. But once you realize that everyone is already inherently worthy enough, it can really stop you from looking outside of yourself for that, and you're more free to do things and break social norms to a reasonable extent. For instance, there was this time during junior year I was really fed up with conformity, so I just decided to wear this really kind of whimsical red jacket, and my mom really didn't like it. She said that it looked like a grandma's coat and it looked way too old for me. And my sister, I don't think she ever saw me wear it because she was in college. But anyway, I just wore it, and I don't know if it was in my head or not. I think I got a lot of weird stares, but I was really proud of myself for doing that, because even though it was out of the societal norm of the dress code for school and high school, I didn't care. I just did it anyway. And I really think the world would be so cool if everyone just dressed the way they wanted. Imagine if every ethnicity and culture was wearing their own traditional attire. That'd be so cool. Yeah. And also, like I said, going back to having that belief that having that belief that you're worthy, enough, whole already. Once I really incorporated that into my being and made it my identity, which is different than just knowing it, I realized that I was worthy enough to leave my unhealed family situation and study abroad. So my counselor junior year told me that it'd be a good opportunity if I wanted to study abroad, because I could leave my unhealed family environment. And I took it, but only because I realized that I was worthy. If I hadn't realized that I was worthy of living a better life, then I probably wouldn't have even applied to study abroad, because it was just like really out there for me. And once I studied abroad, something strange happened, because I applied for my program, for my study abroad program, in the spring of 2023. I applied for my host family in the spring of 2023. And at that time, I believed that I was worthy, and I had integrated into my being somewhat, but not completely. And so I attracted a host family that was kind of similar to my family back home. And by that, I mean that they also had some unhealed family dynamics, some narcissism within the family, and I wasn't feeling emotionally safe or like able to be my full vulnerable self. And there was this opportunity that I had, because there was a falling out where my host sister got really picky on something kind of small, and she called my local coordinator, and they realized that we're all inherently worthy. So that was a huge change in my life, and from this new host family, I'm healing so much childhood trauma. It's basically like cognitive behavioral therapy in real life 24/7, and I'm so glad I did, because I think it expedited my healing process, and I've learned so many things along the way. Okay, another thing that I learned from this spiritual awakening, like a change that I made in my life, is that it gave me permission to be my true authentic self, like vulnerably. Okay, so if we think about this, because we're all inherently worthy enough, equal, whole, one, that means that even if you make mistakes, you're still good enough. Like, I had this thing from my childhood because I thought I had to be perfect in order to be loved, because that's what my father made me feel. Because even if we did one thing that was wrong, like sometimes we'd make a mess in the kitchen, or we'd spill something, which is completely reasonable, and it happens. But my dad would get super angry and start yelling because of things like that. The inability to make mistakes. I developed a perfectionist mindset, and I really had to break free of that. And I think that a lot of people have this, especially with parents who are really hard on them when they're making mistakes. So because I had this perfectionist mindset, I thought that I had to only show my perfect self. I couldn't show like all the depth of who I am. And that also includes opening up about my family, which was not perfect at all. So yeah, and one time when I really noticed this shift and how it strengthened my relationships by being vulnerable was with my new host mother. Like, I just told her one day, like, she asked me, like, why don't you want your parents to come to visit? And I was like, well, and then I really wanted to avoid the topic and just say, like, well, I don't know, I just don't want them to visit. But that wouldn't have been authentic to what I was actually feeling. So I just told her, it's like, because I don't have a healthy relationship with my dad, because I feel like my dad would not be the best person to hang around. I don't think he's the best person in general. And I really opened up about it. And because of that, our relationship is much stronger, because she related to that, and I didn't even know that. So being vulnerable strengthens relationship, and you can only be vulnerable if you realize that being imperfect is more than okay. And in fact, no one is perfect. And the more that you show your authentic, true vulnerability, the more people will be attracted to you, because not many people are actually authentic, and it kind of makes you feel like you have a connection with that person. If you're actually showing your true self, because if you can't even project your true self out into the world, then how can they trust you? So authenticity and vulnerability is how trust is formed. Make sure to comment what lessons that you learned from childhood or things that you took away from this video. Bye.